It's the final mailbag episode of the offseason. A lot of questions surrounding the Atlanta Braves outfield situation after the signing of Alex Verdugo. Answer those questions and many more on today's mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at Shortstop Ball. Check out the podcast at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment down below. And if you're watching this or listening to this on the audio version, leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Your patience is going to be rewarded because this time next week, the Braves will either be 1-0 or 0-1. Obviously, hoping for a good start to the season out on the West Coast. Got a question about that today on this mailbag episode where I'll be answering a wide range of your Atlanta Braves questions. Again, our last mailbag episode before opening day. A lot of today's questions have to do with the outfield situation. What does it mean for Jared Kelenic, who gets the most home runs and games played in the outfield this year? So a lot to do with the Braves outfield situation on today's mailbag episode, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, let's jump into the questions because, as general, I tend to run out of time on these episodes. First one comes from Matt Karch, who says, if you were AA, what would you do with Ian Anderson? Also, what would you consider a successful West Coast trip? I'm fearful we could fall behind in the standings early. Regardless of what happens on this West Coast trip, regardless of what happens in the month of April, nothing is going to work unless they got fewer than 10 wins through the month of April. I'm not really going to be worried. Again, I think the low mark for them is probably 14 wins. And even if that happens, it's the first month of the season. It's a long season. If they were to go into San Diego and lose 3 or 4 there, and then go to the Los Angeles and lose that series, or even get swept, and you're talking about, one win in your first 2 series, your first 7 games, I'm still not even going to be too worried at that point. It wouldn't be great. Obviously, I'm hoping for more than that. But you look at that West Coast trip and those 2 series in particular, you come out of there with 3 wins, and I think you're feeling okay. Anything less than that, it's not great and certainly doesn't have you feeling good, but it's the first month of the season. The Braves have gotten off to slow starts before. I'm not really going to put too much stock into that. As for Matt's first question about what to do with Ian Anderson, AJ Smith-Shawver's throwing the ball right now. I missed the final inning as I need to start this podcast before my kid gets home. But I think he's pitched better than Ian Anderson, even though I know Ian Anderson hasn't given up a lot of runs. I think you put Ian Anderson in that long reliever swing roll type of spot for the Atlanta Braves in the bullpen to begin the year. I think AJ Smith-Shawver has earned it in spring training over Ian Anderson. Again, I know the ERA and all that looks good for Ian Anderson, but watching the starts, you just cannot have a guy in a big league game, once he's facing big league hitters 2-3 times through an order, you can't have him going out there walking 5 or 6 batters a game. And you're just not going to be able to get away with that in a big league game. And so I think AJ Smith-Shawver deserves that final spot. And I think you put Ian Anderson in that last spot in the bullpen where, look, it's not that I necessarily feel great about AJ Smith-Shawver in the starter's role either. He still has some command issues, even as we saw in the game on Friday, walking a few batters. So he might not be able to go long in a game. I think you could potentially piggyback those guys if you needed to, but you also just have Ian Anderson there or AJ Smith-Shawver. I think they're both going to be on the roster to begin the year. Which one's going to be in the rotation, I still don't know. And I don't know if the Braves know that quite yet. But I think whichever one isn't, you use them in that swingman type of role. Obviously, AJ Smith-Shawver is a better fit for the bullpen. I don't even know what Ian Anderson would look like in that situation. But it becomes a Jesse Chavez situation to me where it's, okay, the games, you're either up by 3 or you're down by 3, more so when you're down by 3. you go to Ian Anderson, see if he can give you a couple of innings to save the rest of the bullpen and hopefully keep you in the game. That's how I would look at that role for Ian Anderson. If it's AJ Smith-Shawver out there, then I view it as a Spencer Strider situation from a couple of years ago where you bring him in a game that you're winning and hope that he can give you 2 solid innings to bridge the gap for the rest of the bullpen while starters aren't going deep in the games to begin the season. Say a Smith-Shawver, Lopez, or a Sale even only goes 5 innings in the game, and you're trying to piece things together. You put out a AJ Smith-Shawver for an inning or 2 or an inning and 2/3, something like that to help bridge that gap. I think he could be really effective in that role. But which way the Braves are going to go, I don't know. You're asking me if I was AA, which way I would go. I'd put AJ Smith-Shawver in the rotation just because I think he's the better pitcher right now. I think he's earned it in spring training, and I'd give him the spot. And then I would just use Ian Anderson as that long reliever type of role, garbage time type of pitcher. Manuel Gonzalez, hoping that Murphy does bounce back and Baldwin also does well. Do you think the plan may be to keep both until 2028 and then don't re-sign Murphy so we can use that money to try and re-sign? Did I just say those monies? So we can try to use that money to re-sign Ronald. They'd be saving Ozuna's money, so there will be money available. I feel like that's too far down the road to really put too much stock into this. Do I think they keep Murphy and Baldwin until 2028? Yeah, I think they do. Even if Murphy doesn't really turn things around offensively, I think he's valuable for what he brings behind the plate. And it'd be a lot to pay somebody to be even a split time or backup catcher, but that's basically what they've done the last 2 years with Travis d'Arnaud. So I could see a situation where you have Murphy and Baldwin splitting time at catcher with Baldwin also getting time in the DH spot and running that through, 2028 and beyond. But I don't think that's necessarily for a cost saving type of deal to try to re-sign Acuna. I don't think those two things really align with each other. PJ's Braves, what do you think will be the rotation order for the start of the season? Obviously, Sale first out of the gate. How possible is they start with a 6-man rotation, and what are the benefits of doing that? So we didn't talk about that in the Ian Anderson question a minute ago. I guess you could technically go with a 6-man rotation. I just don't feel comfortable enough with Ian Anderson or AJ Smith-Shawver to do that. Then you have 2 games that you're not really confident in. Again, I think AJ Smith-Shawver is a better pitcher. I think he has looked better in spring training. I still don't completely trust him at this point, and I certainly don't trust Ian Anderson enough. So in order to have a 6-man rotation, you got to have 6 guys that you trust are going to give you a chance. And I'd hate for every 5th and 6th game, you're throwing out a starter that you don't know is going to give you 5 innings. And that's what the scenario would be if you had AJ Smith-Shawver and Ian Anderson in the rotation. As for how things will start, I think it will start Sale, Schwellenbach, Holmes, Lopez. Sale, Schwellenbach, Lopez, Holmes, and then either Ian Anderson or AJ Smith-Shawver. So I think they already said Schwellenbach's going to pitch one of the games at the beginning of next week in Arizona. I think that Monday game. Which would set him up to pitch on Saturday, I believe. So I think Schwellenbach will get game 2 with Sale obviously getting opening day. Then I think it'll be Lopez behind him. And then Grant Holmes. We haven't heard much or seen much from Lopez lately. I guess that would be the only exception. If he doesn't get another spring training start, maybe they do want to push him back. You could move it up to go Holmes and then Anderson and push Lopez back to the end of that. But assuming everything's okay with Lopez, and last indication was that everything was good, then I think he'll get that 3rd start. Doug asking about that as well. Why has Lopez not pitched in spring training in 2 weeks? He has been throwing minor league games. He just hasn't pitched in a spring training game, big league spring training game. Don't necessarily know the reasoning for that, but that's what was reported the other day. So again, assuming everything is fine there, I think Lopez will pitch game 3 of the season. If not, they could obviously push him back a little bit. But the schedule, usually you get that built-in off day for the first series, but because they're in San Diego where the weather is always perfect, you don't have that. So you're going to need your 5-man rotation from the beginning. There aren't those built-in off days there where you can skip guys around. All right, a lot more questions to get to on today's episode, more about the outfield situation and others. We'll get into those here next. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. If you've got your eye on a few underdogs this year, FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe. They have tools and resources that will help you stay in control of the way that you play. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. There's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, the smell of the ballpark food. I can smell it now. I can't wait. And if you're looking to go last minute, Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. With last minute deals, all-in prices, and a lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as Gametime gets closer, meaning you can score an incredible deal. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On, and as the MLB season is coming up, I can count on them to help grab tickets that meet my needs. I'm still looking for those home opening day tickets for the Atlanta Braves, and I'll be checking out Gametime constantly to get the best deal there. They have the Gametime Picks feature. This makes finding the best deals effortless as it filters out all the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And I love that I can preview my exact seat before purchasing. No bad surprises when I get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Thanks as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Make sure you check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. You can follow that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, just like you can Locked On Braves. We'll be back next week. Got a lot more coming your way before opening day. We'll obviously have NL League's preview coming out. I'll give you my season-long preview. We'll do some overs and unders and predictions for the upcoming season and preview that Padres series. So a lot coming your way next week before opening day, before I head to the beach. Yes, I'll be at the beach again for opening day weekend, but we'll have a lot of content coming your way before then. Let's jump back into the questions here, picking up with Anthony Del Sandro, who said, would you extend Marcell Ozuna? If so, what would be a fair offer? A lot goes into this. I picked it as one of my top storylines. I picked one of my top storylines of being Drake Baldwin and how he performs this year and what it does to the Braves' future plans, because I think it plays into the Marcell Ozuna situation. If Drake Baldwin is just crushing the baseball, whether it's in his short time at the big league level or when he goes back down to AAA, and the bat is just forcing the Braves' hand that they have to get him in the lineup, does it make the decision to move on from Marcell Ozuna that much easier? I think Marcell Ozuna is a better hitter than Drake Baldwin. I don't think that's a crazy statement. It may have been crazy 2 years ago to say that, but with what Marcell Ozuna has been the last 2 years, I think it's pretty safe to say that he's a more established hitter than Drake Baldwin at this point. But you're talking about saving $16 million with not bringing back Marcell Ozuna. And you're finding a way to get Baldwin in the lineup more because you can have him split duties with Sean Murphy behind the plate and have him DH. It also opens up the ability to have Ron Acuna Jr. DH some and get him off his knees a little bit. I feel like the need is there to have the DH spot be a little bit more flexible. If Marcell Ozuna wasn't here, Ron Acuna Jr. would be playing on opening day. I feel like. If Marcell Ozuna wasn't here, Ron Acuna Jr. would be playing on opening day because you could just put him in that DH spot and it would be fine. As it is, you can't take Ozuna's bat out of the lineup. He's been one of the best hitters for you the last 2 years. So Acuna has to play in the field. But if Marcell Ozuna is not there and your DH spot's a little bit more flexible, you can put Acuna in that DH spot and give him some rest days. So I think there's a benefit to having that DH role be something that you can rotate guys in. and free up spots and opportunities for guys to get off their feet. Put Austin Riley in the DH spot for a day. Matt Olson, he wants to play 162. Well, maybe give him a day off in the field and let him DH for a game. And I feel like that's probably the best way to go forward with that DH spot. Look, unless you can find somebody like Ozuna, like Ohtani, who are just some of the best hitters in the game right now, I really think it is more beneficial to have a DH spot where you can rotate guys through. What would a fair offer be? Look, if Ozuna comes back and look, there may be a situation where other teams just still don't want to touch Ozuna because of the off-field situations that he's had. And if you were to just come back to the Braves and be like, I'll play again for $16 million, I think you have to take that though, because that's still a really good deal for a guy that, again, has been one of the best hitters in baseball the last 2 years. And that's assuming that he has another good year like that. But he is in his mid-30s. He's getting older. The decline has to come at some point. And it may come this year, and it makes all of this moot if that's the case. But I feel like $16 million, which is what he's playing for this year, I feel like that's a pretty fair offer. I feel like it's a team-friendly offer if he's going to give you the type of production that he's already been giving you. Jordan Griffey says, can we teach an outfielder to play shortstop? Just kidding, kind of. Assuming Harris, Acuna, and Profar are the top three, who do you have as the fourth outfielder? Can you predict the Braves that will be all-stars this year? I kind of talked about this yesterday with Verdugo. I think he's better than Jared Kelenic straight up right now. I think he's the fourth best outfielder on the team. So that's who I think the best fourth outfielder is. As far as all-stars, I think Acuna is going to be there, especially if he comes back and looks anything like himself. He's going to get a lot of votes. Michael Harris, Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Spencer Strider has a chance. Chris Sales, Schwellenbach. I think there's a case to be made that Braves could get 6 or 7 guys, and they're going to get a boost with it being in Atlanta this year. So I think there's a real shot that they could have 6 or 7 guys. Ozzy, I didn't mention Ozzy either. So I think they get at least 6 guys into the All-Star game. Double A, let's play some over-under. Schwellenbach, 3.20. I'm going to take the over just because that's really low, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's under that, but I'm going to take the over, but it wouldn't be by much. I guess that's how you do over-unders. Strider, 180 strikeouts. I'm going to take the over on that. I think Strider's going to be back soon. I think he's only going to miss 3 or 4 starts to the season. So if he still makes 25 starts or so, gets 150-ish innings, I still think that's 190 strikeouts. Sale, 165 innings pitched. I'm going to take the over on that as well, being optimistic. Again, I wouldn't go much over 170, 175. Olsen, 120 RBIs. I'm going to go under 120 RBIs is just a lot. And I think he's going to be batting down in the order, perhaps at times even behind Ozuna, depending on how things shake out. And Riley and Ozuna might take some of those RBIs away from him. Riley, 35 home runs. I'm going to take the over. I'm expecting a big year from Riley. Michael Harris, 280 batting average. I'm going to take the over. Acuna, 110 games played. I'll take the over on that as well. I've got Acuna at about 115 to 120 games conservatively. So we'll do some more over-unders and predictions next week as well. Brennan Smith, favorite moment player interview from behind the Braves this year. Should they do more behind-the-scenes content throughout the season? Yes, they certainly should. That would be great and give us fans a little. I wish they'd do more in spring training. I think the little 20 to 30-minute episodes they do, they're great, and I love them. I think they could do more. A lot of it is just B-roll. But I think they could certainly do a lot more than that, make it more story formatted throughout spring training, like a Hard Knocks or something like that. That's going to take more of a buy-in from the team and the players to get that level of access, but to do it kind of more of a storyboard thing instead of just playing these clips. And like I said, a lot of B-roll. I think they could do more with it. I love it. I'm not complaining. I'll take what I get, but I think they could certainly develop it into more and take that throughout the season. This is kind of low-hanging fruit, but my favorite moment player interviews were Acuna, just hearing him talk in English. I thought that was really cool. And then Strider, just because when he talks, I mean, it's really fun to hear his thought process on the game and his recovery. So I really like that stuff. I wanted to get more from Tim Hires as well. He was somebody I was really interested in hearing from, and we got a little bit of it, but I would have liked to see some more of that. Mac McGuire says, do you think that Verdugo plays in more or less than 80 games? That's hard to say because he's not going to. If he were ready to go to begin the season, I would definitely take the over on that. Because I think if Snitker plays it right, I think Verdugo is going to be a really good bat off the bench. If you would have said started, I'd take the under, but play in, I think he plays in more than 80 games because, again, if Snitker utilizes the bench correctly and RC is up against a righty in a big spot late in the game, you put in Verdugo and then you bring Allen into the game defensively. Like, that's just the way it should go late in the game. So I think he plays in more than 80 games, although I don't feel as great about that just because he's not ready to begin the season. Chuck McMillan, Craig Kimbrell, and Freddie Freeman have both had great careers. How much more does each one have to do to earn a spot in Cooperstown? Who on the Braves has the trajectory, time, and skill set to get in? I'm still pulling for Andrew Jones and Dale Murphy, and I think both of those guys will get in. I think Freddie Freeman is there. I mean, he just won a World Series MVP. He has a regular season MVP. He's won 2 World Series. I think Freddie Freeman is there. It's really now just about putting up some more counting stats. But I think he's a Hall of Famer. I think Craig Kimbrell is a Hall of Famer. So I think both of those guys are already in. As far as who's on the Braves that can get there, obviously Acuna, if he can stay healthy and have some more, put up some more monster seasons consecutively like he has been, I think he has a chance. I don't think Olsen, Riley, have that type of trajectory. I think they'll be in the Hall of Really Good, but not the Hall of Fame. So I think Acuna, Chris Sale, kind of cheating because he's only been with us for a year now, 2. But I think Chris Sale will be a Hall of Famer as well. But outside of Acuna, I don't think I see anybody else really on the roster that's on that trajectory. All right, a couple more questions to get to on today's episode before we wrap things up and get ready for opening day a week. We'll do all of that here next.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's wrap these questions up here. Thank you so much for submitting these questions each and every week. It was a long off season, not a lot going on, and you continued to submit great questions every single week. We'll continue to do the mailbag into the season as well, so this isn't going to go away. But I do applaud you and appreciate you for all the great questions you gave me all off season long. Next one from Bake_Jaker. Who would you predict to be in next season's starting rotation, bearing any injuries? Schwellenbach and Strider, certainly. Sale, there's a team option on there. So assuming he has another good year and doesn't get injured, he could be back next year. AJ Smith-Shawver, and I think Grant Holmes. I mean, I think the same rotation that's there right now, I think has to be your leading candidates to be there next season. So that would be my prediction at this moment. Sethan, how are you doing on this fine day? I'm doing great and excellent. It's getting ready for opening day weekend, also spring break for the kids who are out of school, and that's why we're heading to the beach next weekend on opening day weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. Again, hate being away on opening day weekend, so I won't be able to jump on and pod with you guys for opening day weekend, but I am looking forward to some family time at the beach, getting some time away before we really get into the grind of the season. And nothing like sitting on the beach listening to Ben and Joe on a baseball game. Did it last year. It was a lot of fun too. So looking forward to that. But thanks for asking. Jeremy Vincent, this is a fun outfield thought exercise regarding our starting outfielders. Who will lead the team in ranking first, second, third in these offensive stats? Home run, stolen base, on base percentage, RBI, and WRC plus. So home run, I'm going to take Michael Harris just because I think he's going to get more at bats. And I think he's going to hit 25 to 30 this year. Stolen bases, I'm going to take Acuna. I know he said he's not going to run as much, but I think we're talking about going from 70 stolen bases to maybe 40 to 50 stolen bases is the way I kind of view that. He's still going to run. I'd also take Acuna in on-base percentage. I'd take Michael Harris in RBI because he's probably going to be batting in the 5th and 6th spot. And I'm going to take Ronald in WRC plus. I feel better about Ronald coming back this time. They're being more cautious with him. Everything he's saying sounds good, like the knee feels better than it did last time. So I'm very optimistic on Acuna coming back from injury this time around and him being more like himself, and hopefully not the 2024 self that we saw, but more like the 2023 and 2021 and prior self of Ronald. Matt Cox, do you think they'll send Kelnick down to Gwinnett once Verdugo is ready? I do. I know there was some talk that he and Verdugo can both coexist on the roster, not when Acuna's here. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. And like I said, I think Verdugo is the better player and the better fit for this team and the lineup and what it needs. So I do think, unless Kelnick just goes off in this first, week or two. And look, who knows how long Kelnick has to prove himself to begin the season. He's certainly going to start the year in a platoon role, but how long is it really going to take Verdugo to get going and get up to speed? Hitters usually need about 20 to 25 at-bats before they say they're ready. So Kelnick might only have 2 to 3 weeks to really prove himself. But unless he just comes out on fire, I think he's going down whenever Verdugo is ready. Not even so much Acuna. I think he goes down when Verdugo is ready, which is what the question was. But yeah, you have the option for Kelnick, and I think that's also maybe the best thing for him. Less stressful environment for him to work on all the things that he's learned the past 2 years with the Braves, with Kevin Seitzer and now Tim Hires, and a bit of a more stress-free environment where he can play every day. He can play against lefties. I think that might be the best thing for him to get on track. A last one here from Jomer, who says, and that's Jomer with the J, assuming Smith-Shawver is in the rotation to start the season, when Strider comes back, do you think they will send AJ back to AAA to get starts or move Holmes to the bullpen? If AJ stays in the majors, then Ian Anderson will likely be cut. Easy answer to this is it all depends on what happens in those first 2 to 3 weeks. If AJ Smith-Shawver is looking great, I think they keep him in the rotation. If not, then I think you send him down to AAA to continue to work on things. If Holmes looks good in the rotation, then you keep him in there. If not, you move him to the bullpen. Ian Anderson looks good, you keep him. If not, you cut him. And that's just kind of the way I see it playing out the first couple of weeks of the season. I think that's going to be an audition for all of those guys to prove that they deserve to be on the roster and stay on the roster. So for a lot, I just talked about with Kelnick, but I think also with Smith-Shawver, Holmes, and Anderson, these first 2 to 3 weeks are an audition for these guys before Strider comes back, before Acuna comes back, assuming nothing else happens between now and then, assuming nobody else gets hurt. Look, the first 2 weeks of last year, you lost Strider. So, things can change very quickly. So it's hard to predict that at this moment. But I do think just with how things stand now, it's going to be an audition for those guys until Verdugo's ready, Strider's ready, Acuna's ready. For some of the bullpens guys, until Kimbrel's ready, I think it's going to be an audition for these guys who pitches the best early on. And hopefully that elevates the game of these guys early on to say, I got to prove myself now. I got a short window to prove myself. And hopefully that elevates all of them. They all play great. And then it just forces the Braves' hands as to what they need to do. Well, thank you so much. That was all the questions today. Thanks. We got John Edward in here, Reaper YT. I saw Jeffrey Humphreys, Sethan in there. Thank you all for joining on today's episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for all the great questions that you send in. Doug Bellion here. Thank you so much for joining the live episode today. Thank you so much. I know we haven't done a live one in a couple of days, but you've been killing it on the views and the comments on the podcast. Thank you so much for that. If you missed my conversation with Justin Toscano of the AJC, make sure you go check that out. All right. We have ran out of voice. We ran out of episode. Y'all have a great weekend. It's opening day weekend next week. I cannot wait. Got a lot of podcast episodes coming your way to get you set up for the start of the regular season. Make sure you are going to subscribe on YouTube. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and make sure that you are locked in to Locked On Braves all season long. I see Sethan saying, Jake, you're going to take that, but I don't know what he's talking about, but I'll have to go back through and read the comment section. But thank you for the comments. Thank you for the kind words as we get set up for another season of Atlanta Braves baseball. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.